So basically, during the past 70 or 80 years, the town has maintained sidewalks. We've done it every single year, and in residential areas. This year we fixed sidewalk on. Last year we fixed it on Longview. 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we did a sidewalk on Mount Joy. That was in bad shape. Also in Ardsley Road near the Midway Shopping Center. Every time there's been cracks, we've always fixed it. So my feeling is that the town should continue it for residential, properties, not for commercial, properties. And I spoke to Rich, and he said he just needs, town board authorization to change, to change the code. And again,
And money and staff.
Right. Well,
Yeah, so Rich, why don't you have that
You
conversation?
just got finished saying how over
Yeah.
We're definitely,
stretched out
we
you
are
are.
taxed.
Yeah.
So we've been advised by legal that the practice of going in and repairing sidewalks, we're not talking about capital improvement projects.
Mhm.
We're going and doing a new stretch. This is the repair of sidewalks. The way our code is written, we are prohibited from doing that. I think they call it a gift of.
we've been doing it for a decade.
We have. There's no question about it. We've been.
But we've been breaking our own laws.
So,
For 200 years.
In some areas.
in
Yeah,
some
so
That's
areas.
the other thing.
so
Where are we doing this?
now we have to, I know the supervisor has earmarked $500,000, I think, in the capital plan to target the repair of sidewalks in the area where they're deemed hazardous. The code as it's currently written does not prohibit that. So we've been working closely with legal. I know they've got very, I think Joe was going to present a few different codes for the board to look at. I know he's been working on that. That's something that would have to be looked at moving forward.
Yeah, my concern, and I just want the board to be aware, is that currently the liability is on the adjacent homeowner, to clear any obstruction or any issue with the sidewalk. So I'm trying to creatively draft some sort of code that maybe allows us the opportunity to go in and make changes, however, not to shift liability onto the town. And I think I presented this to you, Supervisor, before, but also to maybe charge the homeowner for
Yeah, I'm
those.
against charging.
Right, I'm just looking at other codes and what other municipalities have done before. So I could provide several different options.
Because, the issue that I have is, I feel, we've had, a few years ago, there were 9 pedestrian safety accidents. And we had a couple of fatalities all within weeks of each other. There was, I think, nine
In the roadway.
accidents within like 2-3 months. It was like one after another.
In the roadway.
Yeah, and my feeling is that the town, to me, we've been encouraging more pedestrian safety by building sidewalks, which I think is really important. I feel that our efforts, because we've been building miles of sidewalks in recent years, will result in savings of lives. Every few years, you see somebody dying because they were walking, on a road rather than on a sidewalk, and a car hit them. Every time
So
you
we
could just.
mix, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just-
No, I think we're mixing orange and
No,
apple.
because-
Am I mixing orange?
because what's
This is
No,
so we're
because-
talking about, Paul, we're talking about sidewalk repair. We're not talking about making new sidewalks,
right.
because that's what I hear you talking.
No, the reason, let me say, it is because my feeling is that when we're going to a neighborhood, people know that they're gonna have to pay for the repairs. In front of, let's say, for example, on Hillside Avenue, we're gonna be building brand new sidewalk. That's gonna potentially avoid accidents, avoid fatalities, gonna make it easier, safer for people to walk. If residents will say, if we say, oh, by the way, we're building a new sidewalk, great news, now you're liable because you're gonna have to pay for a repair of a crack. Nobody is gonna want a sidewalk in front of their house because basically nobody wants that additional expense. So I feel that people who have the sidewalks in front of their house, they basically are doing to me public service by saying to the rest of the community, I may not like a sidewalk in front of my house, but I could live with it because for the greater good, maybe a life will be saved. If we change the law and make them liable, they're gonna fight it, and we're gonna get fewer new sidewalks
Well,
built around the town. And I think
Aren't
that's
they,
something-
aren't they liable as the law stands
Yeah, but they're
now?
not, they're not
Let me-
responsible
Let me,
for
let me,
maintenance.
let me ask a question, but we have to make a fair equation but everyone has to understand too, that while each individual homeowner if they're maintaining their sidewalks and and fixing the cracks, there's an outlay of money. But if they don't and the town does it, there's an outlay of money in our taxes. So it's going to come out of pockets anyway. It's just more discreet when it's lumped in with our whole tax package. Because what we have to look at is what it costs in terms of personnel for the DPW to repair the sidewalks. We have to figure out what it costs to assume the liability. And I would like to have some sense of that before I'm going to approve it. I mean, it is a good and feel good and certainly safety factor. And it is a responsibility of homeowners. It's their own children and elder parents have to walk on those sidewalks in front of their house too. So it behooves them to do that. They would walk in the streets if there was no sidewalk in front of their own homes. So, we have to weigh all the possibilities and, I'm not saying that it's not a good thing to do, but we have to look at all the aspects of
Yeah,
it
I'm not
before we
saying
make
should
any
look,
decision.
but let me just say one other thing, like Saturday or Sunday, I was driving on Ardsley Road. And while I was driving, it must have been 1 or 2 o'clock, I saw some town employees, they were salting, the sidewalk on Ardsley Road, which we've been doing for years. And I was like really, really thrilled because I said, this is really government at its best, because it wasn't like it wasn't a snow like this. It was just a little slippery. And I saw that the crews were out there and they were basically working on a weekend, and they were putting the safety of Greenberg residents, first, so to help them avoid slipping and falling. A number of years ago, when this first came up, I remember, driving on Ardsley Road, going to the Scarsdale train station. And it's so, it's very, very narrow. It's very it's slippery and it's steep. And I saw people the town basically said, oh, the residents have to assume the responsibility of clearing the snow from the sidewalk, which a lot of people didn't do. So a lot of people were basically walking, on the road. And I remember I saw cars almost skidding because, it was really slippery, the road conditions. So I asked the town board, and the board basically, approved a decision. I think it was a resolution or a decision, whatever, saying, okay, the town's going to assume the responsibility of salting, the sidewalk. Now everybody walks on the sidewalk. Nobody's walking on the road. To me, and I'm speaking, this is like something that I just really feel passionate about. I feel that if we change the rules, not everybody complies. If somebody's on vacation, sometimes they forget about salting the road. They could get a violation. They could get a summons. But in the meantime, a car could hit a pedestrian walking on a road and somebody could die.
Can I
just
ask
don't
a
really
question,
want- I don't
please?
want to really have to.
Can I ask a question?
be aggravated about
I'm a little bit confused. Are we talking about repairing sidewalks, or are we talking about shoveling and salting
I think it's
sidewalks?
both.
Yeah.
So we have to-
It is
It
two
is both.
separate
It is both.
areas.
It is both.
They're both in the code. They're two separate articles right next
Okay.
to each other. within the code.
But the supervisor wants to assume the responsibility for both.
Yeah.
So I would like to know, you've definitely made your point. I'm thank you. I'd just like to know what the implications are for the town. That's
And I
all.
think that's what needs to be determined.
Yeah,
And that
to
needs
be
to be
determined.
determined. And what bothers me tremendously is that we have a discriminatory practice. Some property owners, the town will come and shovel the sidewalk and salt, like you all just mentioned. And others, where it was put in front of their houses, mainly on main roads, they didn't ask for it, but the town decided it's a good place to put a sidewalk. Now they're responsible for shoveling it and plowing it, while somebody who has more connections is having the town do it. And so my position is we should either do it, particularly on main roads where people didn't ask for it, but it's there for, a good purpose. I don't think we can have a policy that applies to some and not to others.
And that
That's
brings
fair.
us back to the manpower issue. That's an enormous job
Right.
if I'm accurate, if I'm thinking correctly.
Yes,
But Scarsdale does it, right? Scarsdale,
the villages do it. Ardsley's a mile. I think they do most of the sidewalks. When you talk about the maintenance end of it with snow.
Right.
The town does any sidewalks in front of their properties. Ardsley Road, which is a county road. They do the routes to the train station. Those types of things. There's one or two sidewalks that were just added. They do, by the way, it's the Parks Department that does the sidewalks. And they've got some equipment, but to do all the sidewalks throughout town, if that was the town board's decision,
we're talking about main roads.
main roads, for the most part, some of them are hit, not all of them, but I can get you that list.
But my feeling is that, first of all, I don't say that you're wrong. I feel that.
I was agreeing with you.
No, I agree with you. No, that's good.
They want your head.
No, but I feel is that if we could come up with a policy and say, the main roads, first of all, I feel that all sidewalks, we should be fixing, if there's cracks or whatever, I think the town should assume that response, continue to do what we've always done and do the repairs. I feel that with the snow shoveling, we should basically on sidewalks leading to train stations or major bus stops. I feel we should do that because it's, if it's a very steep hill, and it could be a danger. I feel that we could come up with a plan that, that could work. I also think that the town could, consider creating like a sidewalk district, which, we've talked about before. It could be the whole town. And we could say, listen, it could be part of a budget. And we could say all the sidewalks in the town, the repairs are going to be paid for by everybody in the sidewalk district. Because, when you really look at it, when we build the sidewalks on West Hartsdale Avenue, Hillside Avenue, or right now we're doing North Washington Avenue, people who are benefiting from it is everybody in that area, not only the people who live right in front of the sidewalk. So if we want to change the law and say pedestrian safety is a priority, but we have to do it, we have to create a sidewalk district for the whole town, or we want to do it
Right.
district by district, that's another
Okay,
option.
so why don't we establish the criteria or several alternatives?
Yeah.
And then then the attorney can look at how he would modify the laws for us to look at, and the commissioner can determine what the annual costs would be so that we can
That's fine.
have a realistic idea
Yeah, and I
too.
just, on our end for Department of Public Works, I want to just make sure I'm clear that we want to be consistent and fair to everybody.
Mhm.
And again, after consulting with our legal team, the code does not permit us to do that.
Right.
So we're looking to make sure that whatever we do, we're in compliance with the law.
Right.
And I think after this discussion, I have greater resources now to know kind of what you want and how you want it situated. So I think we could put something together, and then Rich, I'll get it right over to you after the board approves. at least in theory, not an official approval.
So that will be
Start
done
putting
by
some
Wednesday.
numbers.
Sure.
Yeah.
You need a few more Joes.
But
Yes, that's
it
true.
also raises an interesting point because we have a code and I believe by resolution, we have agreed to have the town plow and salt sidewalks. I don't think a resolution trumps our code, which we'd have to actually look at
I'm
amending the
saying
code.
draft a change to our code.
No, I understand
Okay.
that, but I'm wondering right now whether or not what we have been doing and do plowing, shoveling and salting some sidewalks. I believe that was all done by resolution, which may not make it legitimate because a resolution doesn't trump a local law.
All right, so
So we
I-
gotta
I'm
look,
not
we have to
saying
look
that's
at, we have to look at that.
everybody knows what
That
to do.
whole thing.
All right, thank you.
That's good.
Okay.
Again, Rich, don't leave. I know
No,
we have
I
other
know.
things, so.
And
Yeah,
Do you wanna do
definitely
your segue?
While you're considering.
No, I'll do it at
changes
the
to
end.
Code, think about, the requirements of the district, because we can't change the code without having a way to pay for the changes.
Right.
And the district
Right.
at least is a way to pay for the
Right.
changes.
Right.
Right,
Because the payment also costs staffing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
right,
Exactly.
Staffing.
exactly.
This is gonna cost.
Staffing,
Alright.
insurance.
So
Yeah.
we gotta look at that big. thing.